Good Sunday to everybody. I want to do a quick episode of Truck Talk, and hopefully I'll make it quick, but they tend to extend. I just want to cover two things. The first thing is in the news today. You had a bank failure two banks failed in Italy. So you're starting to see banks failing all over the place. So I'm telling you to get prepared. If you're not going to listen, that's on you. Don't get mad at me that my family and I are prepared, and don't get mad that I'm getting my neighborhood prepared and all the people I know prepared. A lot of people like to watch my videos and they just discount what I say and they just shut the video off. But what I'm saying to you is you need to prepare very, very soon, because what are you going to do if you go to a bank and it's shut down? You can't get your money out. So you got to start thinking about those things. But anyway, a lot of what's going on is crazy because most of the world functions on what's known as fractional reserve banking, where if you put 100% of your money on deposit, they'll keep a small percent of that money on reserve at the bank, and then the majority of it they lend out. So depending upon if it's a checking account or if it's a savings account, a checking account, they'll lend out maybe 80% of your money. On a savings account, they'll lend out 90% of your money. And the 10% they keep on reserve at the bank. So that's what fractional reserve banking means. So if you decide you want to go take 100% of your money out of the bank, as long as nobody else is doing that, you can get your 100% out. Depending upon the amount. Again, if it's in excess of, I think it's $10,000, the banks get a red flag and they won't let you take your money out because of they claim it's because of terrorism and that they don't want people to take their money out of the banks. But the reality of it is the banks don't want you to remove your money from the bank because they're fractional reserve banking. So you need to start preparing for the day when they're going to shut down a bank. If you notice, all these bank closures happen on a Friday because they need those 2 days to figure out a resolution. It gives them extra days on Saturday and Sunday of not doing business for them to figure out what to do with these banks. And also, if it's on a Friday, there's nothing you can do the next day. You have to wait till Monday to do business again if they decide to reopen. So they tend to do it. And then the other reason is most people are busy on the weekends. They decide to go to baseball games, football games. They go to the amusement parks like I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the amusement park tomorrow. But I pay attention to these things even on weekends. So they do these things on the weekends so that nobody will notice what's going on, because most people are asleep to this stuff. Even if I start talking, I notice right now when I do these live broadcasts, I have people coming in and going out, people coming in and going out. Some stay, a very small percentage stay to hear this conversation. A large percentage come in and they leave. Most people leave because this kind of stuff is boring to them, but they don't realize it affects their lives. And it's different because I take this live broadcast and then I upload it to YouTube as a pre-recorded broadcast, and now you can go back and see it anytime you want if you're a subscriber. So the subscribers are not the same as the people who come in on my live broadcast. I keep seeing people joining, some people leaving, and it's funny. This thing is like dry information to them. It's boring to them. And so it tells me how many people are just out of it. They don't know what's going on. You guys who are subscribing to my stuff and you're actually listening all the way through, you have a benefit because I'm giving you a heads up to what's coming. And it's unfortunate if you just joined my groups on Facebook, on Steemit, and on YouTube. It's unfortunate you just joined because you're behind the curve on what I've been telling people for the last 20 years. And it's starting to happen now. You're seeing these banks. So on the fractional reserve side, the banks take in your 100% of your money, they lend out 90 or 80%, and they keep 10 to 20% in the bank. So if you come in and everybody decides to take their money out of the bank, the money's not there. And you get a bank run because people start to get scared. They start to realize that there's a bank run going on because they start to see the line forming, and then the banks go bankrupt. So that's what you're seeing in Italy. You've seen it in Spain. You saw a bank run in Canada. And Warren Buffett, actually, I'm reading, bailed out Home Capital. So it's a global society. The Democrats and these globalist Republicans keep pushing for how we should be holding hands as one world. And what people don't think about is when one person jumps off a cliff, if you're holding hands, you're all going together. And so that gets into what I want to talk about as my second topic. Second topic is how people there are people who think that anarchy is different from being a Democrat or being a communist, but in reality, you don't realize that anarchy actually supports democracy or Democrat type system or mob rule, and somewhat communism in that regard, because when you get a mob together, you get what's known as groupthink. If you've ever studied management, and you get a company that is the culture is so closely controlled, people don't think freely in that kind of a company, and so you get something known as groupthink, and it's very dangerous in that kind of environment, because there can be somebody who sees a danger, and because of groupthink, they get intimidated about coming out and reporting that danger, because they don't want to go against the culture of being one in that company. And so you get things like in NASA, when they had the space shuttles exploding, they were discovering that there were certain people that recognized there were problems with the tiles on the space shuttles, but because of groupthink, they were intimidated and they didn't want to report it, because they didn't want to be looked down upon for noticing this defect when nobody else did. That's a real dangerous way of thinking. And that's the problem with democracies. Democracies are mob rule, where the majority of people, if they vote, they get to decide for the rest of the people who maybe are against them. So if you have 51% of the vote, you decide what happens in the country versus the 49%. And even though it's only a slight majority, it's still a majority. And that's why I hate the popular vote. And this is why Democrats are always talking about popular vote, because they are Democrats, they're for democracy, and that's mob rule. Mob rule is your neighborhood can vote against you if they don't like you, and you have very little you can do to protect yourself, because there's a majority against you. You're the individual, you're the minority, and so you're the sucker, you're SOL if anybody wants to hurt you. Okay, so this is how anarchy is very much the same way, because anarchy is a philosophy where they believe that we shouldn't have government at all. Democracy believes we should have government by the majority, but anarchy believes we shouldn't have government at all. But the problem with anarchy is it results in government of the majority anyway, because when you have no governing authority, people will tend to tribe together. Some people will become individuals, others will group together, and it's those groups that will rule over the individuals. So in the end, you get mob rule. It's the same thing as democracy. So anarchy is no different. So when you see these Antifa guys protesting, and you try to figure out, why are Antifa in alignment with the Democrats and the leftist thinking? Because it's all the same. They want no government, they want no control, so that mob can rule. And mob rule is very, very dangerous. And so those are the two issues that we really need to prepare, because those are the big issues that we face. There are a lot of good things going on, and I'm very happy for him. Like I posted that I think Donald Trump was chosen by God, because a lot of the things that he's been facing have been falling apart. Even though he's been facing overwhelming opposition, all that opposition is like crumbling. No matter what they do against him, he prevails. And you have to be anointed by God in order to be able to prevail like that. So God's really doing something in this country. He's changing things. But that means that whenever there's change, there's going to be some form of pain. You know, when a caterpillar goes into his chrysalis and becomes a butterfly, there's a form of pain, there's struggle that has to go on in order for that butterfly to form properly. And so that's what's going to happen. We're going to enter a new world. I think it's a better world. It has potential to be a bad one if we don't watch out and we don't hold our authoritarian politicians accountable and keep watching them and saying, hey, Nancy Pelosi, stop your garbage. Hillary Clinton, stop your garbage. Barack Obama, stop your garbage. Paul Ryan, stop your garbage. You know, it's on both sides of the aisle, but you can tell who the authoritarian globalists are, because they're always holding hands, especially after that shooting with the Republican congressman. You see the establishment Republicans holding hands with the progressive Democrats. Disgusting, sickening. They shouldn't be holding hands. They shouldn't be coordinated in any way. Their philosophies are too different. And one is very dangerous, especially the progressive is very dangerous. Well, they're both dangerous when the establishment is involved. So what we're seeing is this globalism is starting to fall apart. Everybody's holding hands, and what's going to happen is the banks are going to try to centralize authority and try to control everybody. And with the cryptocurrencies, we're seeing a fight for decentralization. With social networking, we're seeing a fight for decentralization. But you always have these globalist entities that want to control the world. So if it's a real battle right now, prepare, so you're not a slave to the authoritarians who will come in and go, oh, look, the world's falling apart. You need food, so you need to do what I tell you to do, and I'll give you your food. If you've prepared, you have food, you have water, you have your protection, you have everything set up so that if the world falls apart and the government's like, you need to do what I tell you to do or you're not going to get any food, you can say, I don't need your food. I got my own. Bye. Peace. And I'm going to end it with that. So have a good week, y'all. Pay attention to the world, what's going on with the banks, because we're globalists now. Everybody's a globalist, whether you like it or not. They've tied us together through free trade agreements and legislation. So when one falls off a cliff, we're all going. So make sure you got a parachute so that you can shake their hand off of yours as you're falling, and you can pull that ripcord, and everybody else can go plummet to death, and you'll be able to just sail to a smooth landing. Still going to be painful, but you'll be prepared. Have a good week.